Hi, Andrea here. I hope you're doing well. Today, let's talk about the ketogenic diet and let's discover what it is, does it work, why is it so popular. A big disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist. I publish these videos for informational purposes only. Please do your own research, talk to your doctor. A great companion video for this particular talk is my previous video on ketones, ketosis, and ketogenesis. I would suggest you go and check that out before watching this video. So let's talk about the ketogenic diet. What is it? And why is it called ketogenic? Well, the ketogenic diet basically promotes ketogenesis or nutritional ketosis, which means that it's a nutrition plan that favors the metabolism of fats, which in turn favors ketogenesis and the production of ketones. It does that by restricting carbohydrates. And you can think of the ketogenic diet as a extreme, probably the most extreme, low carb diet. So in a strict ketogenic diet, basically you should compose your meals with maximum 5% of the calories coming from carbohydrates, 20-25% coming from proteins, and the rest coming from fats. And why does that work for fat utilization, ketogenesis, ketosis? Well, it works because when you eat that low amount of carbohydrates and a moderate amount of proteins, then you are basically not producing a lot of insulin. So you're keeping your insulin down. By keeping your insulin down, you basically put your body in a state of ketosis and in a state of fat utilization. So you are exercising your fat engine. If you have done any research in terms of intermittent fasting and fat loss, then you probably came across many sources that put together intermittent fasting and the ketogenic diet. And even in my framework, I always have like the two main buckets: the when you eat and the what you eat, and then there is a third with the exercise, but let's focus on nutrition. So when you eat is intermittent fasting or time restricted feeding. The what you eat, I always say you have to lower your carbs. So ketogenic diet could be part of that framework. The pairing of a fasting protocol with a low carb or a ketogenic diet nutrition plan are the best approach for weight loss. All right, I'll give you my thoughts on the ketogenic diet and then my approach. Well, first of all, I believe the ketogenic diet itself is very effective. It's very effective because it lowers insulin, because fats do not spike insulin, fats promote satiety. So by eating fats and proteins, you will not be hungry. It's very difficult to overeat. You can stay without eating a longer period of time. So they actually help with fasting and with eating less frequently. Whereas carbohydrates make you hungry. You're hungry all the time. Now, one drawback of the ketogenic diet, especially the strict ketogenic diet, is that it's kind of difficult to sustain long term, especially for us modern individuals, modern human beings. We are so used to eating so many carbohydrates that transitioning to a ketogenic diet and maintaining it long term, it's kind of tough. Another problem with the ketogenic diet is that once you start, it's very easy to overdo the fats because you think, oh, the fats are good, so let's stuff everything with fat. Put the butter, put the lard, put the oil, even when it's not needed. You just keep adding fats. The reality is that you don't need to do it. You should not overdo the fats. When you are transitioning from a high carb diet to a ketogenic diet or to a low carb diet, it is okay to overdo the fats, but then long term, it's really not needed, because at the end of the day, you want to use your own fat, not the dietary fat. One other drawback of the keto diet is that the market has been flooded with products that are called keto friendly. And all those products are actually processed foods. And it's tricky. It's tricky because when you go into the ketogenic diet, then you kind of equate keto with healthy. And if you do that equation and then you go to the grocery store and find a keto bar, then you think, oh, it's healthy. I can eat that. So that is dangerous, because you will start eating a lot of processed foods that are marketed as keto. You think they're healthy, instead of eating whole foods, whole natural foods with all their proteins and natural fats. And then one last thing that might be a little bit of a drawback is that when you go into this ketogenic mode, then you think that you need to be always in ketosis and high ketosis. And the reality is that I think that our body is made for going in and out, for metabolic flexibility. So you need to exercise your sugar engine, your glucose engine, and you need to exercise your fat engine. So with all that said, what is my approach? What do I do? Personally, I do not stick to a strict ketogenic diet. I tend to be low carb on average, and I do that by alternating periods of zero carbs, stricter than a ketogenic diet, with periods of moderate to high carbs sometimes. I have never calculated the macronutrients. I just eyeballed and kept it zero carbs or moderate carbs, low carb. And basically, I tend to stick to whole and natural foods, minimally processed foods that do not contain carbohydrates. And then occasionally, because I am a modern individual, I have my history of carb addiction and sugar addiction, I have treats. And sometimes I eat some treats that are highly processed, but I really minimize those. You can think of it as a intermittent low carb or intermittent keto. So in my practice, I actually use sometimes keto as a guidance to stay low carb, depending on the person that I'm working with, because keto is very prescriptive. So if a person needs to be sure what is low carb and cannot go zero carb, then the ketogenic diet is a useful tool, especially in the initial transition from high carb to low carb, because it's easier to just say, okay, I have this amount of carb, this amount of proteins, this amount of fats, that's it, instead of eyeballing it, which can become kind of tricky. But I would say that in the long term, I would suggest people to liberate themselves from the percentages and just think about sticking to a diet with whole natural foods, devoid of all processed foods, refined carbohydrates. If you do that, then you're pretty good. Okay, I hope this talk was useful. As usual, if you like this video, like it on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, share this video with your family and friends that might need help. And if you need help, if you don't know where to start, if you need some consultation, just call me. Let's have a chat. I can give you some hints, tips and tricks. You can start on your own, and if you really need help, I can help you as a coach. You can hire me as a coach. Okay? I hope to hear from you soon. Bye.